All right, it looks like the recording is running. Oh, there it is. Good afternoon. I'm Kimberly Kennison, and I would like to call the meeting to order of the Sprague Subcommittee. It is July the 22nd, and the time is 12:31. We have a quorum, and the first item on the agenda today is to approve the minutes from June the 10th. If I could get a motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Mark. Could I have a second?
I guess I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? I see no discussion. I think there's only 3 of us, so we don't have to do a roll call vote today. Can you let me know if you are in favor?
Aye.
Yay? Aye.
Yeah.
Yay. Okay. So we're all in favor. And if no other board member has joined us at this time? No. All right. The minutes have been approved. Next item on the agenda is for us to discuss the Arpa and Esser funds overview and the town's priorities. I'm going to kick it off to Julian first, as Julian has included an overview of the Arpa funds. Julian has actually done a great job in educating himself and attending a number of conferences and seminars on this topic, and to help educate our municipalities. So I'm going to hand it off to Julian to give us an overview.
Yes, the memo that I provided in the meeting materials is a high-level overview of the interim rules that were issued by the U.S. Treasury Department, and all of the committee members in this meeting have heard me walk through this at least once as we've gone through it with each of the subcommittees as an intro to hearing the municipalities' preliminary ideas and plans for use of the ARPA funds, which are considerable. The amounts for each of the municipalities are shown in the small table on the front page there, and although the scale of the funding for Sprague is quite different than the other municipalities, it's still, given the town size, it's still a considerable sum of money and can have a substantial impact. We're still awaiting the final rules on how to interpret the act. But we do have preliminary guidance from U.S. Treasury, and so that guidance lays out the eligible uses, which are the 4 categories outlined beginning at the bottom of page 1. So there are expenses that are directly related to the public health and economic impacts of the pandemic. The second category is the premium paid to essential workers, which allows for an additional, hourly premium that can be added to an essential workers' hourly wage. There's a provision for retroactive payments of the premium pay. The third category is related to the revenues that a municipality has lost as a result of the pandemic, and it allows for a very broad category of expenditures, as really only limited to government services and general purpose capital improvements and capital projects. And then the last category is investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. I think I mentioned before that municipalities can allocate their funds across these 4 categories however they see fit, except for the use of funding in that third category, which is the broadest category, is limited to what they calculate their lost revenue as. And it's a very detailed process for calculating that revenue. I've discussed it with the town, and we've talked about how we can approach doing the calculation, but generally speaking, The calculation is based on establishing a baseline revenue from fiscal year 19, calculating what the revenues would have been absent the pandemic, and then comparing that revenue to what was actually collected over a over the 12-month period for calendar year 2020. And then there are future points at which it will be measured at the end of each calendar year. So there will actually be 4 calculations of that lost revenue when all is said and done. There are certain restrictions on the fund that you may absolutely not utilize the funds for. You may not use the funds to offset a reduction in taxes. You may not use the funds to deposit into a pension fund or to replenish fund balance or reserve accounts. The funds may not be used for legal settlements or for outstanding debt. The spending period begins with March 3rd and extends out to December 31st of 2024, but allows for expenditures beyond 2024 into 2026, provided they were obligated before the end of calendar year 2024. And Sprague, as one of the what are referred to as non-entitlement communities, so one of the smaller communities, the reporting requirements are a bit less onerous than for the others, but they will be required to provide annual reports by October 31st of each year on how the funds have been expended. So that's a very high level explanation of how the funding works.
Thank you, Julian. I don't have any questions about that overview. If anybody has any questions, no. Then I guess I would ask Sprague if you have begun the process of starting to put together a plan and thought about that process on how you plan to pull that information together for this subcommittee.
We have only done some very preliminary planning, looking over things that we feel would be eligible. One of the big drivers for us is going to be technology. One thing we found during COVID is that we are not equipped for having remote meetings and remote working and that sort of thing. We don't have the technology. Also, our infrastructure and our security needs to be majorly upgraded, particularly if you're going to be having that sort of meeting. So that probably would be a big piece of ours. We are also looking at, we have some aging water and sewer infrastructure that we might want to include. We do need to calculate what the lost revenue portion is, just to see which part of that piece can play in. And through our research, it appears that we will have to go through the same process as if it were our budget, go through the Board of Selectmen with the plan, the Board of Finance, and then on to a town meeting to allocate. So it's
Very
gonna be a
good.
process. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So know that we have preliminary, but I do think that it is helpful that you start to pull that information together in the sooner versus the later. So then this way, you know, if you have a project that it could turn into a multi-year project, you would want to make sure that you can, you know, get that planning part done. So it would be helpful maybe for the next meeting, for you to at least, if you're not going to pull the plan together on a preliminary, is to at least provide a timeline. As you know that you have some board meetings that are coming up, what is your plan for that? You will have a plan pulled together to then, you know, present to this committee and also get it to your boards. So I think a timeline plan would be very useful.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other feedback or questions from our board members?
I'm assuming that they don't have to recreate the wheel. I mean, we just went through the Hartford subcommittee and they've been pretty well informed and created initial documents that are very good. And if there's anything that can be shared with Sprague to help them along in that creation. I don't know if you can be a repository for those purposes, and Julian or whoever can forward some outline or template or whatever you want to call it to Sprague so they don't have to create from whole cloth. That would be great, I would assume.
Yes.
That would be
Yep.
helpful.
Yep. We will do that. Mark, thank you. And any questions, because we do have the Esser funds on here, and the superintendent, I believe, is still with us, but he does need to roll off soon. So if you had any questions about the Esser fund, or maybe superintendent, you could just give us an overview of where you're at in that particular stages, because we would want a similar as the ARPA funding.
Sure. Our Esser grant is put in, has already been approved by the state, and we're working on the ARP grant now. They're pretty specific about what it can be used for. There's 5 different categories: health and safety, technology, increased learning, family engagement, and social emotional. So one of the neat things we're trying to do is establish a school-based health clinic here in school with UCFS Healthcare out of Norwich. We had a meeting yesterday. We've already begun preliminary talks and use some of our funding to help fund doing behavioral health, which is greatly needed in the school.
Very good.
And we're trying really hard not to put this into personnel because the cliff comes and we're going to have to lay people off. So we're trying to do things like buy new textbooks, computers, do a parent academy, and improve our HVAC also. But we do have some personnel in there. We're just trying hard not to load it up with personnel and in 3 years have to lay people off.
Yep. Very good. That's important. What kind of funding did you get approved for Esser? I'm sorry, I don't know that off the top of my head.
For ARP, we got $720,000. Michelle, what do we get for Esser 2?
Hang on one second. We got 331,000.
Okay.
So our plan will be done for ARP will be done and approved by the board hopefully on August 9th.
Okay. So then at our next meeting, we'll put you to provide a presentation on both of those and what your plan is.
No problem.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any questions for the superintendent before he has to leave us? I do not.
Okay.
I
stay
think we're
well.
all set. You too. Thank you for joining us. All right. Does anybody else have any other further questions on ARPA or Esser before we move on to the next agenda item? No. Okay. I'm seeing no from Matt. Mark?
No.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Then let's move on to the status update of a number of, I would call it the back office homework things that have to get completed, which is the RFP for the audit service is the first item.
Okay, and we did receive in 2 proposals for the RFP services, for the audit services. And we are in the process of comparing them, and then we plan to make a recommendation probably within the next week to the Board of Finance. And then I'm going to ask them to hold a special meeting because their next meeting won't be for a month, so that we can get an appointment of the auditing firm. So we're going to, reach out to the references for them as well, just to get an idea from them as far as their satisfaction and so forth.
Very good. All right. Glad to hear that that's moving along. And I'll look forward to hearing about your final selection, and I'm sure that Michelle and Melissa will as well. So the next item is policies and procedures. If you could give us an update on the policies and procedures.
The town has contracted with a consultant to assist us with drafting the policies and procedures for financial services. We anticipate that this will be completed by September 30th, 2021. It's just in the early stages. We provided her with some of what we have, and she's doing a little background work. So we still need to get together and then get into the nuts and bolts of it, but we think that it'll move along quickly.
Very good. That's good news. I'm hoping that we can remove an audit finding, because it's not that you don't have policies and procedures, it's just that they're not documented. So it's just putting the pen to paper is where you're at. So that's good progress. I look forward to hearing more on that. Thank you.
Is the Board of Education's policies and procedures going to be completed around the same time in this September type of time frame?
I would say yes. Right,
Yeah,
Michelle?
we shouldn't have a problem getting it done by then.
Okay, good.
They're doing it on their own. We did have a follow-up meeting with the Board of Ed, myself and Julian. And at that meeting, we gave some background and advice on the items that they already have, that the Board of Ed has already pulled together. I'm going to have another follow-up meeting with her, with Michelle, to just, finalize that framework. I gave her some suggestions on a matrix to build within those policies and procedures, and then just to then be able to demonstrate separations of duties in certain processes. So I think that in that area, we will have some good documents, as well as a better understanding.
Sounds good.
Okay. Corrective action plan.
So on the corrective action plan, as we just referred to already, the policies and procedures, so that is an ongoing project. The new item, the budgetary controls over the capital non-recurring fund, we're just going to try to firm up and put some more language into what we already have. We already have in place what should prevent this from happening, but we are going to try to put something more detailed in there that would say that no contract will be executed unless a funding source has been already authorized by the town meeting or the Board of Finance, and then incorporate it into our policies and procedures manual.
Perfect.
And then, Michelle, do you want to speak to the Board of Ed, the nutrition funds and so forth?
Sure, yep. So we had the child nutrition fund, that's all set. Everything's now in the same general ledger system as our general fund. Payroll is through the same process as well, that everybody's under the Board of Ed. The special revenue fund, that is a work in progress. That's the student activity accounts. That's something that we're still going to try to figure out, because, there's somebody new in the front office. We just want to make sure that our procedures are, oh, I'm sorry, the special revenue fund is not the student activity fund. That's our scholarship funds, I believe. And that's one that we're going to be looking at too. It really doesn't have very much activity until the end of the year. So we just have tried to figure out what's the best way to monitor that and to get that so it's not duplicate entry for anything. Student activity fund, we're going to meet over the summer and make sure we have a good process in place. PTO, that one's all set. And then the child nutrition fund, again, with segregation of duties. That, again, now everything comes through the business office, all the invoices, payroll, everything. And then the policy and procedure manual we're working on. So we should be pretty close to good this year.
Perfect. That this is good news. Good news to see the progress in that area. That's been out there for some time.
Our goal is to eliminate all of them, so we're working hard towards that.
Mine too. Mine too for you. Mine too for you. Any comments, questions on any of the status updates? I have none.
All set.
Thank you.
That's great.
Any other related business? I do not have any other related business today. How about the board members?
No?
No?
Okay. The town or the Board of Ed, would you have any other related business that you'd like to bring to this committee's attention?
No.
No, thank you.
All right. With that said, the last item on the agenda for today is if I can get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Matt. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. And we will not be seeing you for the month of August. You get a vacation. Our next meetings is September the 9th for a full MARB meeting. And then we will move on to our subcommittee. Well, we don't have one scheduled at this time, but there possibly might be one at the end of September, but we'll have discussion. Julian and I will have discussion on that. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good
Bye.
night.